Hey everybody, it's Cauliflower Man here, and I'm bringing you guys another video on cryptocurrency. So in today's video, we're going to talk about what is probably my favorite topic in the world. That is killing Bitcoin. So again, I'm going to get probably a lot more hate on this video, but this is specifically designed for developers, and I'm trying to show you guys like how you would create a coin to kill Bitcoin. This isn't that hard to do. I'm not a programmer, so I can't program it. Like if anyone ever actually does get to work on this, I could actually help guide you through it. That's all I could do. If you could actually create a coin like this, I would be willing to invest in it. Obviously, if you're a developer, I would. I'm not going to just invest in some coin some random person on the internet creates. If they just say they created it, I would have to like actually do my research on the coin and things like that. But anyways, killing Bitcoin. The thing about it is that killing Bitcoin's not that hard to do. Technically speaking, there's only one coin, one proof of work coin on the or as far as cryptocurrencies go, that would be harder to kill than Bitcoin, or easier to kill than Bitcoin, I should say. There's only one, and that's Grossel coin because of how quickly the block reward drops. So other than that, the inflation rate on Bitcoin is the lowest of any proof of work cryptocurrency. The other thing you got to remember is as this method of attack does not work for proof of stake coins. So something like Pivx you could never do this to. You can only do this to proof of work coins, and because Bitcoin has the lowest inflation rate of any proof of work coin, it's the easiest coin to do it to. It's also the coin with the biggest market cap, so you've got the biggest reward to kill Bitcoin, and it's also the easiest to kill. So if we go ahead and talk about this, the way you do this is you actually siphon the miners from Bitcoin. So without miners, a cryptocurrency, a proof of work cryptocurrency, like it literally doesn't exist. It does not function. So if you want to kill Bitcoin, you have to steal its miners. So the first point that you have to do with your cryptocurrency is it has to be an SHA-256 mineable coin. So it has to mine using the same algorithm as Bitcoin. So that's pretty simple. That's pretty straightforward. The next point is you got to use a variable hash rate block reward. So this variable hash rate block reward, what is unique about this is that whenever your hash rate increases, so does your block reward, and whenever your hash rate decreases, so does your block reward. So the reason why this is important is because it actually creates a sort of reaction of your currency supply to supply and demand. The hash rate is a decent indicator of supply and demand of your currency. Or of demand of your currency, I guess. So when demand increases on your currency, so does the supply. And when demand decreases, technically speaking, you don't ever take away coins with the block reward. So it would just mean you would have less coins created. The only necessity for a variable hash rate block reward coin is that over the long term, like once your coin has plateaued, and by that I just mean like once it's gotten as big as it can, you need the block reward to equal somewhere in the range of like 2 to 5% of the total coin supply every year. The reason why I say 2 to 5% is that's actually basically what the gold mining production usually is. Technically speaking, it's a little lower than that right now because gold is not used as money, so the price of gold is low. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, with a variable hash rate block reward, the reason why you do this is that eventually the block reward on Bitcoin goes to zero, so they're only getting paid transaction fees. With a variable hash rate block reward, if you're, like, let's say your block reward was 3% of the total coin supply, like 3% a year. If the block reward on Bitcoin, let's say we go to the year 2025, in that year the block reward on Bitcoin, it's 1%. That's what the inflation rate is. So if your inflation rate was 3%, that means that you could have your currency, your cryptocurrency, could be 1/3 the size of Bitcoin, but you could still perform a 51% attack because your block reward is 3 times as high in terms of percentage of the total market or whatever, or of the total coin supply. So it just makes it that much easier to kill Bitcoin with a 51% attack. Now, we'll talk about the 51% attack later. You don't have to perform a 51% attack, but like if I were creating a cryptocurrency, I would put it in the white paper that the coin is designed to kill Bitcoin, because Bitcoin, like, this is a major weakness, the 21 million market cap. So I would want to put this coin and any other coin that uses that sort of that format, I guess is the word I'm looking for. But if you use the format of a 21 million or of a capped supply where the supply will eventually, stay the same. Those coins all need to die because they have serious security issues in the long term. So if I were creating this coin, I would create it with the idea that you're going to commit a 51% attack, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on. The other two things that you would probably want to do with this coin is you probably want to incorporate privacy. This again is it's not a necessity. It just helps your coin get better. So the privacy you'd want like zero knowledge and coin join and IP obfuscation. Technically speaking, I think I made videos where I said PIVX use coin join and zero knowledge. I just updated their wallet, and now it seems that the only option you get is zero knowledge, which isn't a terrible thing. I just like coins where you have a lot of options. I wish PIVX would keep the coin join, and because I mean they still have master nodes, but now I don't think they have coin join, which just really is weird to me. But you could do coin join, just make it hard for users to use. But the one thing, like on the PIVX website, if you look at it, if you do 8 rounds of obfuscation through CoinJoin of PIVX, you would need somebody to have 50% of the master nodes to be able to unmask who you were. Technically speaking, there's other ways of unmasking you, but like CoinJoin is very private. So if I were creating a cryptocurrency to kill Bitcoin, I would incorporate zero knowledge, CoinJoin, and pseudonymity. I'd do all three, and IP obfuscation or IP address obfuscation. I do, technically speaking, that's 4 now. Pseudonymity, zero knowledge, CoinJoin, and IP address obfuscation. I would have all those features, and they'd all be like you can use it if you want to or not. Next thing is scaling on-chain. This again, just like the incorporation of privacy, you don't need to scale on-chain, but I'm trying to show you guys how to create the best cryptocurrency possible. So there's only one cryptocurrency trying to scale on the blockchain, and that's really weird to me because like why? Like what is a cryptocurrency without a blockchain? I talked about ARK when I made a video on this. Like the one thing you have to remember about Bitcoin Lightning is going to make a Bitcoin a lot like ARK, where nobody's going to really download the blockchain and most transactions are done off the blockchain. Like why would you do that? The blockchain is what built cryptocurrency. It's what the whole thing is based on, is the blockchain, and you're going to remove that for 99.99% of transactions. And just like with ARK, people came out and they're like, yeah, it's still a cryptocurrency. It's like, I mean, it's still a currency, but when Bitcoin removes the blockchain with Bitcoin Lightning, it's hard to say it's a cryptocurrency. Now, that being said, the Bitcoin Lightning Network will make Bitcoin a global currency, where right now it's only something that can be used in small bits. So a global currency is better than, a cryptocurrency that only can work for, 1 million people. But it's still not a global cryptocurrency. So if you want to kill Bitcoin, don't scale off the blockchain, scale on the blockchain. Now, some people are going to say, well, we already got Bitcoin Cash for that. Well, there's 2 problems with Bitcoin Cash. Bitcoin Cash also has a 21 million coin supply limit, so it can easily get crushed by somebody who uses a variable hash rate reward. And the second point with Bitcoin Cash is they are not separating the blockchain, so they're just going to make the blocks bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, they could change this later on, but it's going to be hard to do because they already have a blockchain that exists. If you want to separate the blockchain, it's easier to do with a new coin. But with Bitcoin Cash, when the blocks get too big, your average user won't be able to download the blockchain. So it'll be similar to ARK and Bitcoin Lightning, where you will use the wallet, but you won't download the blockchain, and that's weird. The reason why Bitcoin Cash is superior to Bitcoin Lightning and to ARK is because you will always have the option to download the blockchain, but you'll just have to download the right hardware, and that hardware is going to get very expensive the larger the blockchain gets. So, people just aren't going to spend the money on the blockchain. They'll have the option, it'll be cost prohibitive. Now, if you were to scale on the blockchain and separate the blockchain into parts, then absolutely everyone could download the blockchain, and if you were a smart developer, you would have multiple wallet softwares, you would use different wallets. Let's just say your coin is called the Bitcoin Killer, and so you would have the Bitcoin Killer Wallet 1, Bitcoin Killer Wallet 2. Some of them could be designated as light wallets, where you would only download a small part of the blockchain. That way it would be usable for very small and very weak computers. And then you could have what are called heavy blockchains, which would have large amounts of the blockchain, or they could even be the full blockchain. But again, if you're using something like Bitcoin Cash, where they've tested out a 1 gigabyte block network where the blocks are 1 gigabyte, well, your average person can't do that at all. The only people who can do that are servers or like exchanges, places that have a lot of servers. So that's exchanges, that's miners. So those people would be able to download the full blockchain, but that's why you want a heavy and light wallet. So if you separate the blockchain and you scale on the chain, the heavy wallet, it could be as big as you want. It could even be the full blockchain, but only a certain few people are going to be able to use that type of wallet. But obviously you always want as much of the blockchain as you can handle, because the blockchain is a big asset to have in cryptocurrencies. The second or the light wallets, though, the reason why you want a light wallet is that you will still give users who, like, they might not be able to download the full blockchain, but they at least know that they're downloading part of the blockchain. So it still gives them the comfort knowing that, hey, I'm downloading a part of the blockchain and everything's fine. The reason why you want people who can't download the full blockchain to download a part of the blockchain is they can, like, that'll give them ease of mind, and then it'll be very easy. Like, if someone's blockchain doesn't download correctly, like, you know, they're gonna say something and that'll be known in the community very early on. So even if you don't have the full blockchain downloaded, even if you're only downloading a small part of it, you would still be able to trust the network, because you know that the full blockchain is being downloaded. It's just most people only have small parts, even though some would probably still have the full thing. And the other thing you got to remember too with these separated blockchains is you will always have at least 800,000 full blockchains downloaded by your network. That is the minimum. That's how the math works out. You'll have 800,000 minimum. That's how the math works out if you're using something like Bitcoin, I guess. But yeah, so you have a lot of redundancy there. Now, again, if you have people who have, you know, different exchanges that have servers, or mining companies that have large servers, they will download the full blockchain, so you'll actually have a lot more than 800,000 full blockchains downloaded, but that's just the minimum. The final point here is you're going to want to commit a 51% attack on Bitcoin when possible. So the reason why you commit a 51% attack is because that's how you, like, prove your dominance of your coin. And again, what I told you guys earlier is that because the inflation rate on Bitcoin keeps going lower and lower, like, eventually it's going to get near zero. So let's have an example of where Bitcoin, the inflation rate is 0.5%. If you use a variable hash rate block reward and your inflation rate averages at 3%, that means your coin can be 1/6 the market cap of Bitcoin, and you can commit a 51% attack on it. So nobody would really be all that worried if your coin, like, let's say in the early stages of your coin that's going to kill Bitcoin, you're like 1/100th the size of Bitcoin. If the Bitcoin miners decided to do a 51% attack on you, like, no one would see that as an issue, because it'd be like, okay, yeah, obviously they can, they're way bigger. But if you had a coin that is 1/6 the size of Bitcoin and you committed a 51% attack on it, like, that would kill Bitcoin, because they would just be like, holy shit, that coin is a lot stronger than our coin. You know, it's a lot stronger than Bitcoin. But let's talk about these things individually here. So this first bit here, it's just you got to use an SHA-256 mining algorithm. I'm going to bring up a little chart here. This shows the coins that use an SHA-256 mining algorithm. This is an old chart, but, like, how many of you even know any of the coins on this list? Probably very few of you. There's really not very many. Right now, the only other major coin that uses the SHA-256 algorithm is Bitcoin Cash. You know, Peercoin's a proof of stake coin now, I think. So used proof of work in the beginning, but now it uses proof of stake. But it's basically Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, and all these issues that Bitcoin has, Bitcoin Cash has most of them. Bitcoin Cash does scale on the blockchain, so as far as scaling goes, Bitcoin Cash is superior to Bitcoin. But Bitcoin Cash still has a 21 million limit on its currency supply, so you can still kill Bitcoin Cash with a 51% attack with a much smaller coin, or with a coin that has a much smaller market cap, so long as the inflation rate is just a little bit higher. But as far as this SHA-256 mining algorithm goes, the reason why you do this is you're going to siphon the miners over to your coin. That's all you got to do to kill a cryptocurrency. You got to siphon the miners over. You don't, technically speaking, have to do a 51% attack. I just like that idea because I really like getting aggressive with my business tactics and strategies. And so if I were the developer of the coin, I would put it in the white paper that, hey, we're going to, like, the whole point, or not the whole point of this coin, like, the point of the coin is to have a, you know, the best currency you can have, but you would put it in there like, hey, we're going to do a 51% attack on Bitcoin when we're a much smaller coin, because this coin is much more secure, it's much better designed, and we want to prove it by performing a 51% attack on Bitcoin when our market cap is much lower, just to prove that we're a much stronger and much more secure coin. So I would put it in the white paper. That's just the way I would do it. You don't have to, but again, all you got to do is you got to gain a greater hash rate than Bitcoin. So going on, the way you gain a greater hash rate is you use what's called a variable hash rate block reward. Technically speaking, you don't have to do this, because all you need is a long-term inflation rate between 2 to 5%. So you could actually just create a coin that has a long-term inflation rate of 2 to 5% beyond the way you would do that with a steady inflation rate is you would have two algorithms that determine the block reward. The first one would be a normal one that halves every 4 years like Bitcoin. The other one would just be a block reward that's 3% of the total coin supply, and that stays like that for forever. So eventually when the first algorithm that dictates the block reward drops to 0, you still have the second one that keeps the coin supply increasing it at that stable percentage. But a variable hash rate one would actually be best. This is a little harder to do because a variable hash rate block reward, you got to do a lot of math and you got to understand math really well. But all you would do is create some sort of currency, or you would create some sort of algorithm where you know that over the long term, like once your coin has plateaued at its max market cap, which basically means if your coin is being used as the global currency, it would need a long-term inflation rate between 2 to 5%. So that's all you have to figure out. What the variable hash rate block reward does before your cryptocurrency is the global cryptocurrency. That doesn't really matter, or before it's the global currency, that doesn't matter as much. There still are different things you have to look into, but I'm not going to go into that here because I can make an hour-long video doing a bunch of math problems for you guys, and it'd be very boring, so I'm not going to do that. But the reason, again, that you use a variable hash rate block reward is because that actually allows your currency to react in the short term to changes in demand for your currency. So, you know, if the demand for your currency drops, so does the block reward. So that means that when demand drops, that tends to push the price down of your currency. If the block reward drops, that means the supply of your currency grows at a slower pace. So that actually pushes the price back up. So the whole reason you have a variable hash rate block reward is to take the volatility out of your cryptocurrency. Now again, the volatility stays in that cryptocurrency until it becomes, you know, a global currency. So you will have volatility in your currency for the first at least, you know, quarter century while your currency is still growing. So I'm not saying this currency won't increase in price by, you know, by a factor of 1,000 or 10,000 or 20,000. It will. It's just in the long term, after you become the only currency, like you're the world's money supply, you're what's used as money for the world. That's when the inflation rate needs to be between 2 to 5%. So where did I get this 2 to 5% inflation rate? It's actually from the inflation rate of gold. Now, the inflation rate of gold, when gold is used as money, is generally speaking between 2 to 5%. It changes throughout history, and the data for time, like periods long times ago, it's very hard to find that data, but you can find very good data for the gold's inflation rate today. So the reason why, like if you look at this right here, the world mine production, it's 2,500 tons every year basically. It's actually a little bit higher. And then if you look at what the supply of gold is for the world, that's 165,000 tons. So if you divide 2,500 by 165,000, you get a little over 1.5%. And you might be thinking, like, I thought, Cauliflower Man, I thought you said you want it to be between 2 to 5%. But gold's at 1.5%. How do you explain that? Well, technically speaking, gold is not used as money right now. So if gold was used as money right now, the price of gold would be much higher, and so would be the amount of gold produced every year. So if gold was used as money, its inflation rate would be between 2 to 5%. And the second thing is that there's actually more than 2,500 tons that were produced this year, or last year, I guess. I don't remember what the exact number is, but when you do the math with the exact number, you get an inflation rate of about 1.7%, something like that. So not much of a difference, but it's actually very close to 2% already when gold is not used as money. So that's where I'm getting this from. So you want the long-term inflation rate of your currency to be between 2 to 5%. But the reason, again, why this gets really interesting is because in 2025, which is only 7 years away, in 2025, only 1% of Bitcoin is going to be mined every year. So again, let's go back and let's assume that your block reward on your currency, if it's only 2025, your currency is still going to be pretty young, so the price of it's going to be increasing very rapidly. So let's say that your currency is actually on the higher end of the 2 to 5% inflation rate. Let's say it's 5% a year. Well, if your inflation rate is 5% a year and Bitcoin's inflation rate is 1% a year, that means that if your currency has a market cap of 1/5 the size of Bitcoin, because your block reward is 5 times the block reward of Bitcoin's, you could successfully do a 51% attack on the Bitcoin network at 1/5 its size. Now again, you don't have to do a 51% attack, but you could at least tell the community like, hey, we could commit a 51% attack on Bitcoin and we're 1/5 the size. We're way more secure. Why the hell are you using Bitcoin? That could be your argument. That being said, I would love to see somebody perform a 51% attack. Now a 51% attack, I don't mean because there's ways you can defraud people with a 51% attack. I'm not talking about doing that. All I'm saying is commit a 51% attack and shut Bitcoin off for a day. You can make the network not function for a day, and if you did that, everyone would go to your coin. You could be public about it, because it's technically speaking that's the way the algorithm runs, is that a 51% attack is possible just because of the way the algorithm runs. It's not technically speaking illegal. To defraud people using a 51% attack would be illegal, but just to follow the rules of the algorithm, that is not illegal. So you could legally do a 51% attack on Bitcoin, and you would only do it for like a day or something, because obviously you lose a lot of money when you do this. But if you perform a 51% attack on Bitcoin and your currency has 1/5 the market value of Bitcoin, and you make it public that you're the one who did it, then all this money is going to go from Bitcoin to your currency, because people are going to be like, this currency is way more secure. These guys know what they're doing, And if the market cap moves over from Bitcoin to your currency, and your inflation rate is, 5 times higher than Bitcoin's, and we said you were at 1/5 the market cap, but now the market cap from Bitcoin is moving towards your currency, then Bitcoin will never be able to do a 51% attack on you, and you'd still be a smaller cryptocurrency. So this is what I'm talking about. Bitcoin's long-term security sucks dick. It's terrible. It's got a lot of issues in the long term. Anyways, let's go ahead and move on. If we move on here, beyond the variable hash rate, that's the most important thing to this, is using a variable hash rate. But these next two things aren't as important. You want to incorporate privacy features to beat Bitcoin. You'd want the zero coin protocol, coin join. That should be IP address obfuscation, or maybe ISP obfuscation, because I don't really know what IPS stands for. ISP would be Internet Service Provider. You want to obfuscate what your IP address is doing from your ISP. And the reason why you would want this is because right now, if you use Bitcoin, your internet service provider knows it. They know your traffic is doing Bitcoin stuff. They don't know exactly what you're doing, but they know you're doing Bitcoin stuff, and they know when you're doing Bitcoin stuff. So that's an issue. The zero coin protocol, you could use the ZK snarks, but ZK snarks is not as secure as zero coin. You could also use the coin join. I know I've made videos in the past where I said Pivx still used coin join and the zero coin protocol. That's just because the wallet that I was using showed that. Technically speaking, I think I was wrong on this. I actually made another video coming out where I said, oh, I was right, you guys were wrong. I think my commenters were right, so I want to make a quick apology on that. I think you can only use the zero coin protocol with Pivx, which I don't like. I wish you could have options. I know that zero coin is more private, but I would still like the options. Maybe if they just made it hard to use coin join, you had to change the settings to expert settings, but I don't think you can actually use coin join anymore, which is really weird with Pivx, because they still have master nodes. But you can't use coin join. I don't know. Maybe you can use coin join. I'm not sure. I'm a little confused on that. That being said, this isn't a video about Pivx, but you'd want to have privacy features to beat Bitcoin. This isn't, again, it's not necessary, but Bitcoin is pretty public. Your use of Bitcoin is very public. You can still use it privately. Most people don't, but it's if you want to beat Bitcoin, you might as well add these privacy features, and they're already added onto a lot of coins, and these coins are open source, so it's not that hard to implement. You just gotta it's not just copy and paste, but it's very easy to add these features to your coins, since they already exist in other coins. Now, the next point here is that if you use CoinJoin, and again I put IPS down again, it should be IP nodes or maybe ISP nodes, the things that would obfuscate your IP address and make sure that your user end encryption works. Just so you know, two coins that do the IP address obfuscation, one of them is Zencash. They do that through their secure nodes. That's one way to do it. Another one is Verge. Verge does it through routing your traffic through Tor nodes. So there's multiple ways you can do this, but you would want to give both the nodes that do coin join and the nodes that obfuscate your user end data, you'd want to give those a small staking reward. With Dash gives 50% of the reward, of the block reward, to people running master nodes. That doesn't really make sense to me. That seems way too much. I don't know the particulars of it. That gets a little over my head where you'd want to be a developer to know exactly how much goes to them. But you want to keep these rewards as low as possible because, again, you want the proof of work block reward to be as high as possible because you're trying to kill Bitcoin by having a better proof of work currency. So if you have any sort of staking reward, you want that staking reward to be as small as possible. The other thing you got to understand too is if you do have zero knowledge and CoinJoin, very few people are going to use CoinJoin. The only people who really have any sort of use for it would be like a really big corporation that wants there to be a very small trail that's hard to follow for some of their transactions, so basically nobody can follow the transaction, but they would still want some sort of tracking for it, just in case later on they had some sort of dispute with somebody. They could be like, yeah, we paid you, here it is. Like, they'd have to go through all this work to show the transaction through the CoinJoin, but they could, somehow show some bit of it publicly. Now, technically speaking, if they have access to their wallet, maybe they don't need this, so maybe the CoinJoin doesn't need to be there. But again, having a lot of privacy features, that's not a bad thing. Now, the next point here is you always want to keep the pseudonymous option for public use. You never want to force people to use the privacy options. Now, I don't know exactly how all these privacy options work with using, the blockchain. So, like, what I mean by this is you always want people to be able to see if they sent coins to a particular address. They want to check the blockchain to be able to see it. Like, you want to have them have that ability. Okay, so you don't want to take pseudonymity completely out of there. One, just because people like to use the pseudonymity, sometimes they don't need the privacy or want it. You never want to force somebody to do something. Give them the option. That's always the better way to do it. But two, if you have the pseudonymous option, obviously by tracking where your coins came from, there are certain times where you want to do that. So if you make it completely private all the time, then nobody can trace their coins, and they might want to. So if you're going to incorporate the privacy features, make sure to include a pseudonymous option as well. Don't get rid of it entirely. This next thing that we're going to talk about, scaling on the blockchain with a separated blockchain. This, again, it's not necessary, but if you really want to create the dominant cryptocurrency, like almost every cryptocurrency that exists is set to adopt the Lightning Network. But with the Lightning Network, 99.99% of transactions, like if it gets used globally, 99.99% of transactions will not be on the blockchain. I went through this argument with ARK, like if you don't have the blockchain, it's not a cryptocurrency. Now, for something like Bitcoin, Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency that can only scale to about 1 million users. Technically speaking, it's about 850,000, but that's not that great. So if they use the Bitcoin Lightning Network, I would say it's no longer a cryptocurrency, but it will be a global currency. So right now, Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency that can only work for one decently sized city. But if they use the Lightning Network, I don't think you can really define it as a cryptocurrency, but it will be a global currency, which will make it more valuable. So again, when Bitcoin Lightning comes out, I'm not saying the value of Bitcoin will decrease. I'm just saying it's not really a cryptocurrency anymore. The only cryptocurrency that's really trying to scale on the blockchain is Bitcoin Cash, but Bitcoin Cash runs into similar problems because they, as of right now, have no plan to separate the blockchain into multiple parts. So people who use weak computers, like if you're running on a laptop, like if Bitcoin Cash is used globally, they've already tested out a 1 gigabyte block network, and that works fine. The issue is that your average user will never be able to download that. Like, you can't do that. You can't do that to your average user, or they will. You can do that to your average user, but they can't use the blockchain then. So it runs into the same problem where you will be using a blockchain like ARK does, but you won't download it. Now, Bitcoin Cash, of these three separate ways to, do things or to use a blockchain without having access to the full blockchain, between the way ARK does it, between the way Bitcoin Lightning does it, and the way Bitcoin Cash does it, Bitcoin Cash is far and away the superior way because everyone will still have access to the blockchain if they want to purchase the hardware required to download it. The problem is it will be cost prohibitive, so a lot of people just won't be able to download the blockchain. So the way you scale on-chain like Bitcoin Cash does, but you allow everyone to sync up a blockchain, is you separate it into small parts. So you'll have different wallets. Each different wallet will have, a different size of a different percentage of the blockchain you will download. So you might have light wallets where you only download like 0.1% of the blockchain. So that'll be people who use like laptops and stuff, very small computers, who still want to download part of the blockchain, and they still want to see the blockchain sync up on their on their computer, but they don't want to use all that much data. So they'll know, okay, I don't have the full blockchain downloaded, but I have part of it, which is better than nothing. And I also know that everybody else on the network also has part of it. So, if you're using a global currency and you have, like, let's say 100 million users, if there's 100 million users who each have 1/100th of the blockchain downloaded, you have 1 million blockchains downloaded amongst the entire user base. So, like, that it's secure. And again, the thing you got to remember is not everyone is going to use these light wallets. You will still have what would be called heavy wallets, where people could download, larger percentages of the blockchain. Between, you could do like half the blockchain or a quarter of the blockchain or even the full blockchain, but the only people who will have enough of not bandwidth, but large enough processing power to download that much or that large of a blockchain would be basically large-scale Bitcoin miners and exchanges, people who have processors or who have servers, not processors, but people who have servers. So you will still have people downloading the full blockchain. It's just not everybody will be able to. So if you separate the blockchain, you have heavy wallets, which have large amounts of data on them, and light wallets, which have less data on them. So obviously everyone would prefer to have as much of the blockchain as they can, but certain people, depending on the hardware they have, they won't be able to download the full blockchain. But again, if you separate the blockchain, that is far superior to what Bitcoin Cash does, and they're the only crypto really trying to scale on the blockchain. So you'd be the dominant cryptocurrency as far as scaling goes. So yeah, scaling on the chain allows small users to sync. Again, the other thing you got to remember about scaling on the chain, it's actually cheaper than the Lightning Network. So scaling on chain, like it requires more work of the developers. That's why people don't do it. But it's actually cheaper for the network as a whole. And then this final point, again, this is not necessary. This is just what I would do. If I was running a cryptocurrency. One, I would not do a founder's reward or pre-mine. The reason I wouldn't want to do this is because, like, if you're going to commit a 51% attack, I guess I should, say the title of this slide, but if you're going to commit a 51% attack on Bitcoin and you want to do it as soon as possible, you're going to need a lot of mining power. So either you're going to need to make it clear in the white paper that the goal of your cryptocurrency is to commit a 51% attack, and if you do it this way, if you say in the white paper that you're going to commit a 51% attack on Bitcoin, then you can almost guarantee that the miners are going to try and do a 51% attack on your coin while it's small. So that would mean you would have 51% attacks on your network. There's two things that are good about that. One, a 51% attack, they're very limited in what they can do, so you would actually find ways to defend against it. But two, the other thing is that if the Bitcoin network ever performed a 51% attack on your cryptocurrency, they could never have any sort of issue with you doing it to them. Now, a 51% attack does not kill your cryptocurrency unless the coin that does the 51% attack can take all your miners afterwards. So again, if you put in the white paper that you're going to commit a 51% attack on Bitcoin and then your cryptocurrency gets 51% attacked, that's not good in the short term, but the Bitcoin miners can only do a 51% attack for so long because it costs them a shitload of money. And so again, if you're using the variable hash rate block reward, your coin is always going to be, it's going to be even more profitable to mine than Bitcoin. So your defense against, the interest, the profit incentive, the greed incentive that counteracts a 51% attack will be much higher than it will be for Bitcoin. So you will lose a lot more money. Like the Bitcoin network, if they do a 51% attack on a coin that uses a variable hash rate block reward, it'll lose the Bitcoin network way more money than if the coin that uses a variable block reward hash rate attacks Bitcoin. So again, this is just all you're doing here. It's basically a math problem on how to kill Bitcoin. So it's more costly for Bitcoin to do this 51% attack on you than it is for you to do on them. So you have the advantage. Okay, you have the advantage as even if Bitcoin starts attacking you when you're a small coin, you have the advantage. The other thing that you got to remember too is that a 51% attack really only affects people who are using transactions. So in the early stages of your coin, almost everyone is just a long-term investor. So if they're not actually moving their coins around, they have nothing to worry about. So you have very few people who have anything to worry about. And really the only transactions people will basically be doing will be to and from exchanges. So if the Bitcoin miners do a 51% attack, the only coins that they can double spend are coins that they own themselves. So one, they would have to buy your cryptocurrency first, but two, the only coins that really are doing transactions as the currency grows, like in its early stages, are between exchanges, and those transactions would be completely safe. So you really don't have all that much to worry about if the Bitcoin miners were to do a 51% attack on you in the early stages of your coin. But the Bitcoin miners, because they're in the late stages of Bitcoin, they have a lot to worry about. And the other thing, again, when you have, like, if your variable hash rate has a long-term inflation rate of 3%, when the Bitcoin's inflation rate hits 0.5%, then you only have to have a market cap of 1/6 the size of Bitcoin, and you can do a 51% attack on them. And then as long as your market cap grows, because if you do a 51% attack on Bitcoin and your currency is 1/6 the size, you can almost guarantee your currency will increase in market cap compared to Bitcoin. So then you'll be able to continuously do a 51% attack on Bitcoin, and Bitcoin will never be able to do it back to you, because once you get higher than 1/6 of the market cap, if your block reward is 6 times that of Bitcoin, then the hash rate that you will have, theoretically should be more than 6 times higher than that of Bitcoin. So they will, or not 6 times higher than that of Bitcoin, it'll be theoretically higher than that of Bitcoin, because again, we're saying Bitcoin has 6 times the market cap. So if the inflation rate is 6 times less, they should be equal, but you just gained market cap. So now you've gone, you've passed the point of no return, where you can continuously do a 51% attack on Bitcoin whenever you want, but they can never do it on you. Okay, so this, again, the whole point of this is it's literally a math problem, how to kill Bitcoin. So anyone who in the comments was like, you can't do that, it's like, it would be very hard to do, because actually getting, the entire community to do a 51% attack would be hard. But even if you don't do the 51% attack, you could at least do the math to be like, hey, once your cryptocurrency hits 1/6 the market cap of Bitcoin, if your hash rate is the same, you could be like, look, our currency is 1/6 the market cap of Bitcoin, we've got the same hash rate, and if you can keep that going for the long term, you can just be like, we are way more secure. We are way more secure. And then if the community, like if the cryptocurrency community didn't believe you, and they didn't start switching over to your coin, it'd be a lot easier to get your own community for your own coin to commit a 51% attack on Bitcoin just to prove it. Just be like, look, we're not fucking around. Like, we are the most secure coin on the market, and nobody can touch us. And so, like, that would be another scenario, another way to do it. But again, if you really want to do a 51% attack on Bitcoin, the way you would have to set up your coin in such a way that you as a developer would have a lot of the mining power. So instead of doing a founder's reward or a pre-mine, you would just start out as a miner. Now this gets actually very easy, because all the most of the ASICs being produced are Bitcoin ASICs, ones for the SHA-256 algorithm. So you just buy a shitload of ASICs at the beginning of your coin's development, and then you just keep reinvesting in more and more and more miners. And so if you're the first miner, because you're the developer, technically speaking, you should become one of the major powerhouses as far as the mining power goes. So even if you don't have a founder's reward or pre-mine, if you're just a miner, you can get a lot of mining power from it, and obviously you'll gain a lot of money from this too. But if you are a developer who also has a shitload of mining power, then committing this 51% attack gets a lot easier. And again, you don't have to commit this 51% attack. That's just the way I would do it. But I know this video has dragged on for quite a while, so if anyone made it through to the end, I want to thank you for listening to this whole thing. I just think this is a very interesting idea. I would love to, like, I've said this before, I cannot program a cryptocurrency, so I cannot do this myself, but I can help guide somebody. There's a lot going on in this. So like, if you're a cryptocurrency developer and you want to hear my ideas on it, I'd be willing to give you my ideas, but I'm not going to give you my ideas unless you can prove to me that you can actually create something like this, because I'm not going to waste my time either. But I know enough about this sort of shit, I could help somebody out, and it's not that hard to do. Again, like I just explained this to you guys. As long as your currency has a higher inflation rate than Bitcoin, and it's somewhere between 2 to 5%, because that's what you want for a currency anyways, like that's the golden ratio for currencies, between 2 to 5% inflation rate in the long term, you're going to kill Bitcoin, because that's the way that the mining works. Like, as long as if you have a higher inflation rate, then you're going to have more miners mining your coin, and that's all you need in order to have more security. So anyways, if you made it through this video, again, thank you. There will be more videos coming out in the future. They won't all be as long as this, but hope you like this, and hope you like the ones that will be coming out soon.